He thought it was just an old camera, but it showed what was about to happen. And once you see it, there is no escape.
Arthur Penhaligon, a street photographer in his early 30s, with a soul that seemed to carry the weight of ancient stories, lived his days amidst urban shadows, searching for forgotten beauty and silent narratives. His passion for vintage equipment, for machines that seemed to tell stories with the simple click of a shutter, was almost an obsession. It was this passion that led him, on a grey afternoon, to a dusty antique shop, smelling of mold and the past, where the story truly began. There, among piles of trinkets and forgotten relics, he found it, a Polaroid SX70, old, scratched, with an almost magnetic aura that seemed to call to him. The proprietor, a man with deep-set eyes and few words, merely muttered, "Some things are best left in the past, young man." Arthur, a skeptic by nature, smiled, dismissed the warning as superstition, and took the camera home, feeling a childlike excitement he hadn't experienced in a long time. He didn't know he had just purchased his own sentence. In his apartment, with the lights low and the night's silence amplifying the city's distant hum, Arthur tried to test the Polaroid. To his surprise, it worked. A dry click, the motor whirring, and then the image began to develop. But it wasn't his apartment. It was the street outside, a blue car, and in extreme focus, a red car seconds before colliding with it. Seconds later, the sharp screech of tires, the metallic crunch. The accident he had just seen in the photo unfolded in real time, exactly as predicted. The air in his lungs seemed to freeze. This was no accident. The camera continued to fire on its own. An elderly woman in the park, in an image showing her seconds before stumbling and falling, hitting her head. A construction worker, before a metal beam came loose in his direction. The photos were chilling premonitions, a flash of the immediate future, always focusing on the victim moments before misfortune. Terror began to root itself in Arthur. He tried to warn them. He shouted to the old woman, waved frantically to the worker. But fate was relentless. He was a forced spectator, paralyzed, unable to change the course of events. And with each futile attempt to interfere, a new photo emerged. Himself, in dangerous situations. He realized the camera wouldn't let him intervene. It was as if he was part of the curse, an extension of it, a silent harbinger of impending death. Panic became a constant shadow. Arthur barely slept, barely ate. The Polaroid lay on the living room table, a malevolent presence that sucked all peace from the environment. In a fit of desperation and pure terror, he picked it up, determined to destroy it, to end this torture. It was then that it fired again. The image slowly emerged, but this time, it wasn't an accident. It was him. Arthur Penhaligon, his face in close-up, but with an empty, distorted smile. Lifeless eyes that seemed to look right through him. It was the smile of someone who had become something else. The truth struck him like an icy bolt. The camera didn't just predict deaths. It recorded the passing of its own curse. The smile in the photo was that of its next victim, or rather, its next guardian. He wasn't a victim the camera observed, but rather the host, the next link in the unending chain of terror. The camera fell silent after that last photo, a stillness more terrifying than any whirring. Arthur stood there, the disturbing image in his trembling hands, his face pale and slick with cold sweat. His apartment door, which he swore he had locked minutes before, was now slightly ajar. inviting, as if awaiting the arrival of something or someone. A cold breath swept through the room, raising the last hairs of his sanity. He had become the camera, the harbinger of misfortune, condemned to find the next empty gaze. Or perhaps the next empty gaze would find him. The question was no longer whether he would survive the curse, but rather to whom he would pass on the legacy of that terrible vision. The horror for Arthur Penhaligon had just begun.